Risk tolerance. What is it and why does it matter? That's today's episode of Millstone River Live.
Welcome to another episode of Millstone River Live, a podcast brought to you by Millstone River Wealth Management.
Welcome all to Millstone River Live. I'm Adam and happy to be here with Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hey, good to be with you. And hey, everybody, thanks for joining. Today, we're diving into a crucial topic for all investors, and that is understanding your risk tolerance for investment portfolios.
Yes, this is one of those things that can really make or break an investor's success. If you get it wrong, you can find yourself stressed or underperforming.
All right, let's get it going with the first question being, why does risk tolerance even matter? Help me out, Adam.
Well, every investment carries some degree of risk, and understanding how much risk you're comfortable with helps you build a portfolio you can stick with, even during market volatility.
All right, that sounds right to me. If your investments are too aggressive, you could panic when markets drop. On the other hand, being too conservative could be just as bad. It might mean your portfolio doesn't grow enough to meet your goals.
And the last thing you want to avoid is selling at the worst time because you just couldn't handle the swings that the market has. It's all about making sure your portfolio matches not just your goals, but also your mindset.
So that brings us to the next question, which is, what is risk tolerance? And we can define it. It's the risk tolerance and its role in investing is important to understand. What factors go into it, such as your age, your income, your financial goals, even your personality. And then there's the concept of risk tolerance versus risk capacity, and being able to differentiate between risk tolerance, which is the emotional ability to handle risk, and risk capacity, which is the financial ability to handle risk. So how do you want to define it today, Adam?
Risk tolerance is essentially how much risk, like the potential losses or volatility, you're willing to take with your investments. It's the emotional and psychological ability to handle fluctuations in the market.
So it's not just about your feelings, but there are three main components: your ability, your willingness, and the need to take some risk.
Exactly. Like, you just mentioned, when it comes to ability, it's determined by things like your income, assets, and time horizon. Willingness is more about your comfort level. And need refers to how much risk you must take to hit your financial goals.
Yeah, so people sometimes talk about, I don't want to take risk, but then there's the question of, do you need to take risk? And I think these things all work together. So how do we assess it? There's a couple of factors. One is there are assessment tools that you can use yourself, questionnaires, websites, or even mobile apps that can help an investor assess their risk tolerance. It's impossible to know what yours is until we can quantify it somehow. There are case studies, kind of looking at examples of different risk tolerance levels and then what their corresponding impact would be on a variety of investment choices. And then, of course, we're biased, but we think it's important to discuss this with your financial advisor, who can be really helpful assessing risk tolerance. So how do you think we assess risk tolerance, Adam?
Well, one of the most common ways is to use a version of a questionnaire. They ask questions about how you would react to market changes, engage your emotional capacity to handle losses. Another way is looking at past behavior. Have you ever invested before, and how did you react when the market dipped last? And then there's also the practical side, like considering your time horizon and financial goals. If you're saving for retirement, let's say 30 years away, you can probably handle more risk than if you need the money in 3 years, as an example.
All right. So beyond making that assessment and knowing where on the spectrum of risk we feel we can handle, the next is making sure to align the investment portfolio with that risk tolerance. So there's, three considerations here. There's the investment strategies, which is kind of like how to align the investment strategies with a variety of risk tolerance levels. There's the asset allocation, which would be the importance of having diverse investments put together in one portfolio. And then there's making adjustments over time. So risk tolerance can change over time, and the need to adjust portfolios accordingly changes sometimes because of external factors like market conditions, your job, or other types of things that might be beyond your control. But then also some internal factors, things going on in your personal life often dictate how you feel and whether you feel comfortable taking more or less amount of risk. So, all right, once you know your risk tolerance, how do you then align your investments with it? That's what we're talking about next.
Yeah, and that's what we try to do is create a portfolio that is going to have the inherent amount of risk level that matches your tolerance. If you're more risk averse, we might be focusing with certain types of investments that carry lower volatility. That could be bonds or dividend stocks. If you're more comfortable with volatility and you're seeking a higher return, different types of growth investments are more suitable.
So then asset allocation plays a big role here. That's how you balance stocks, bonds, and other asset classes within the portfolio so that it aligns with your risk tolerance, right?
Absolutely. And rebalancing periodically helps keep your investments in line as the market shifts over time, or if at some point your tolerance for risk changes.
So it might be worth noting a few common mistakes and, just as importantly, maybe more importantly, how to avoid them. So there's emotional investing, which can be considered dangerous, making investment decisions based on emotions. There's overestimating your risk tolerance, which is another risk. And then there's ignoring risk tolerance. That's a great risk as well when it comes to your investment planning. So let's talk about some of these common mistakes people make when it comes to their risk tolerance.
Well, one of the biggest mistakes that you alluded to is overestimating your tolerance. When the market is booming, everyone feels confident, but the real test comes when things turn south, and that's where you want to make sure that your portfolio is aligned appropriately.
Good point. Another mistake is letting the emotions drive the decision. This is easier to talk about than it is to actually do. Fear and greed are powerful forces, and if you're not careful, they can push you into making poor choices. You mentioned people feel very almost exuberant when market conditions are going great and everything's working in your favor, but that becomes very difficult sometimes for some people when that direction turns around.
And the last thing I would add, don't forget about lifestyle changes. People often set a risk tolerance early on and forget to update it when their financial situation or goal changes. And just like the ability to take on risk is going to be different at stages of your life, so will your tolerance. And it's important to check in every once in a while and make sure that your goals are still aligned with kind of how you feel about market volatility.
So good points. I would say the takeaway here is to be honest with yourself. Check in regularly, and remember, it's okay to adjust your portfolio as your life evolves. There may be considerations when you're making adjustments, like whether the adjustments will actually serve your goals, whether there would be any negative consequences to avoid, such as taxation. But it is perfectly legitimate to want to make changes over time based on how you feel. And I think that's still different than making emotional decisions.
Well, I'm glad we had a chance to discuss, risk tolerance and its connection to your investment portfolios. If you found today's episode to be helpful, be sure to subscribe to Millstone River Live and share it with a friend. And if you have questions, as always, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We genuinely hope that this was helpful information, at least enough to get you thinking. Remember, knowing your risk tolerance is one of the keys to staying the course, especially during tough times. Until we see you next time, be well.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Millstone River Live. Feel free to share it with someone you think might benefit. Millstone River Wealth Management is an independent wealth management firm based in New Jersey. We form a supportive partnership with our clients and help with financial education and planning. We welcome your feedback. Send comments or questions to podcast@millstone-river.com. More information about our firm can be found online at millstone-river.com. Thanks for listening.